Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Welcome to Rhythm Lightning Talks. I'm your host, Parag Katkar. I'm the head of consulting practices at Rhythm, and we have several awesome lightning talks lined up for you in the upcoming weeks. Our lightning talks are hosted every Thursday at 5:15 p.m. Eastern Time. And each week, one of our practice area consultants shares their knowledge on the evolving technology trends in the industry. It will keep you learning and growing in your career. And this week, Chen Song, who is an awesome front-end developer with us, is going to go over web components. He's going to tell us what web components are, when to use them, how to use them, everything about it. I'm really excited about this talk. So without further ado, let's get it started, Chen.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, hi everyone. So yeah, my name is Chen. So I'm a front-end developer. Currently is working on a client of eTrade. So today in the lightning talk, I'm going to introduce the web components. So yeah, let's start. Okay, so the web components is not a new concept. It was first time introduced by Alex Russell at the Frontier conference in 2011. So yeah, it's more than 10 years from now right now. But the web components is not get popular. So like a lot of front-end developers don't know what it is. And also a lot of people never heard about that. So yeah, I think it is still a good technology that you can use to build components for the front end work. So yeah, I will go into the some details here today, and we'll give you a quick introduction for the web component. So the first of all, what is web component? So web components, they are just a set of APIs that you can use them to create custom, reusable, encapsulated HTML tags. And you can use those components in any web pages or any web applications. And because of this, these components are built by pure JavaScript. So you don't need to use any other library or framework. So in this case, you can use them in any JavaScript libraries and in any JavaScript frameworks. So yeah, as we know, like there are a lot of very popular JavaScript frameworks like React.js, Angular, Vue.js. So what's the difference between those JavaScript frameworks with the web component? So I will see first of all, for the JavaScript frameworks, they are more complex. Like, of course, you can create components in a JavaScript frameworks, but you can do something more. Like you can have routings, you can have a state management, like anything that you need to build the whole web application that can all be done by frameworks. But what's the bad thing is that those frameworks, they cannot be shared across different frameworks. Like you cannot use a React components in an Angular app. So yeah, on the other side, for web components, yeah, they are just components. It doesn't have other features. Like you cannot build the whole web application only with web components. You have to use something else combined with the web components. Like you can use you have to use some other libraries, and you have to use some other frameworks. But the good thing is, like as I mentioned before, like the web components, they are built with vanilla JavaScript. So you can create and use them across different frameworks, both Angular, React, Vue.js. They all can consume web components. Yeah, because of the web components is strongly encapsulated, so there is sometimes it may cause some accessibility issues there when you use web components. So just be careful. Okay, so next I'm going to introduce some web components features. So there are mainly three features for the web components. The first one is the custom HTML element. The second is shadow DOM. And the third one is templates and slots. So let's go over them one by one here. So first of all, the custom element, what that mean is that you can register your own HTML tags. Like for example, for this code, you can have a custom tag called my component, and then you can have you can have an attribute called text and pass in some value there. So yeah, this is a very simple introduction for the custom elements and custom HTML tags. So let's have a real example here. So on the left side is the HTML file. On the right side is the JavaScript file. So on the left side, we use a custom elements. We call that my button, and then it has a message attribute. We can pass in some message through that attribute. So we know that this my button is not a native HTML element, so the browser does not recognize it. So in order to make this working, make it work, so we need to pull in some JavaScript file here. We call that mybutton.js file, which is the file on the right side. So in the JavaScript, we can define a class called mybutton to extend the HTML element. So yeah, in order to make the browser know what it is, so we have to call this custom elements.define with that tag name mybutton and map that to this mybutton class. So because with this code here, when the browser sees the mybutton tag, okay, it knows like, oh, this mybutton means this mybutton class. And in this mybutton class, we define some we define some elements there in there. Like we can call the create element function to have a button there, and I also want a message to be displayed below that button, and we can call the get attribute function to get that message attribute and take the content and put that into the message below the button. So yeah, what we expect here is that we will have a button rendered on the DOM. We will have a message rendered below that button. So yeah, this is the results in the browser. We can see the button is rendered and the message is also rendered there. When we inspect the DOM here, we can see there is a my button tag here with a attribute message, and inside that my button element, we have a button elements there, and we also have a p elements there to show the message. Yeah, this is just a very simple example here, just to introduce the HTML custom HTML elements here that you can use any tag name or any attribute name that you can use. The second feature, which I think is the most important feature for the web component, is the shadow DOM. What does that mean is that it allows you to manage a separate DOM node tree from your normal HTML DOM tree for all the HTML elements inside your web components. And also this including also allow you to do the scoped CSS styles. And also it makes the web component to be encapsulated. Now let's see another example here. We are using the same my button example as we used before. So in order to enable the shadow DOM, you have to call this attach shadow function and set the mode to open. By doing this, it will have a shadow DOM, a shadow root available under your web component, and you can append the buttons and the message. Instead of appending them to the real DOM, you append them to the shadow root. So the result is in the browser is like this. We still got the button and the message rendered, but when you inspect the DOM tree, we will see there is a shadow root showing on your inspector, and your button and your paragraph p elements will be under the shadow root here. So this whole shadow root is, we call that shadow DOM. That is totally encapsulated and separate from the main DOM, or we call that light DOM. So in order how to prove that is like if you run the document.query selector and you want to select that button, you will get a null here because that when you call this when you do this command, you are doing that in the light DOM, but the button itself is being placed in the shadow DOM, so you cannot access it. So the next, yeah, we can see for the previous examples, we will have a lot of we will see a lot of grid elements being called like append child being called multiple times. So we will know that if you have something like a complex component that may have some complex structures with multiple layers, so they will be very hard for you to create an element, create the component. So there's another easier way to write the web component is just using the HTML templates. Like on the right side here, we can just put the HTML templates in a string here. Like we have a button, we have a p elements here, and we put that string to the shadow root.inner HTML. So yeah, this will be much easier in this way to build a web component. Like these two codes does exactly the same stuff, but the right way is much more simple. Yeah. So yeah, the next I'm going to introduce the way to write the scoped CSS styles in the shadow DOM. Like this is example here. Left one is the HTML, the right one is the JavaScript file. So to write some styles in the web component, we can use the style tag in the HTML elements there. We can define some styles CSS for the button. Like we can set the padding, set the background color to orange, and set the text color to white. And to compare, so we can define some global CSS in the HTML file. Like we can have a global CSS for the button. We give them a 1 pixel black border. We give them a white background color, the blue text color. And then also we have a normal button, like the regular button being placed under our web component my button. So when we do this, for the results here, we will see, you can see the orange button, which is the web component button, is rendered on the top, and our regular button is also rendered there. Yeah, we will see like our web component button does not pick up any styles from the global button, and also our regular button does not pick up any styles from the web component. Yeah, this is how the web component do with the shadow DOM with the scoped CSS. Yeah, I think this is very useful for you to build some components that you can share them across a lot of different libraries or projects. So you won't have any conflicts with their native styles. Yeah, the third feature I want to introduce is the slots. So the slot is just a HTML element, which we'll consider to be a placeholder inside the web component, and you can fill with your own markup. Like you can pass in the markup as a children to your web component, and the children will be placed in that slot element. For a real example here, so this example, we are using a new web component. I recall that my section here instead of the my button. So this my section will take a message paragraph as its children. And on the JavaScript side, we will have the my section will have a section header, and we will have a slot element below that section header. So from the definition, we will see that we will expect that these P elements will go into this slot element. So yeah, this is the results. And from the developer tools, we can see in a DOM, we have a slot rendered inside the shadow root. And then inside that slot, we see this P elements here. So you will see something like this. That means that this P will reference to the paragraph here with the message. So the browser will treat this paragraph inside the slot. So on the left side, we will see this message will showing below the header here. Also, furthermore, we will able to have multiple slots inside one single web component. By doing how to do this is that we can give slot different names, like on the right side. So we have a default slot, which I placed in the h1 tag in the header. And we have another slot. We'll give that a name with a content, the name to content, and place them under the header. So on the HTML file here, so if we're passing anything as a children, if you don't define the slot attribute here, this is header message will be going to the default slot. And this P element, it has a slot attribute with the name of that slot name. And this P element will be going into the slot with the same name. So yeah, here is the results that is rendered in the browser. We can see for the default slot, it has a text reference to the this is header. So we can see this is header is being put into the H1. We will have a bold text and large font size, which is H1. And also for the paragraph P will be placed in the slot with a name content, which will be displayed under the header. Yeah, this is pretty all the web component features that I want to cover today. And so I know that in the front-end world, we always talk about the browser compatibilities. So fortunately, all the modern browsers, they all support all the features for the web component. Like from this chart, you can see for the Chrome and Safari, Firefox, Edge, they all support web components very well. I know that IE 11 does not support web component, but the good news is that we know that Microsoft has stopped maintenance, stopped the service for the IE 11. So yeah, that's a good news for the web component. Yeah, that's pretty everything that I have for today. So if you want to know more details, there are some links here or resource here that you can visit. One is the webcomponents.org. You can find a lot of information there. And also you can visit the MDN docs. And yeah, if you want to build something yourself, if you want to build some complex web component, there is a tool called Stencil that I really recommend. So that tool can allow you to build web components with with TypeScript and JSX. Yeah, if you are a good developer with React, this will be a very easy for you to understand and use. Yeah, I think that's all for today's lightning talk. Yeah, any questions?